Insellmilkom, Sinjuri, nirringrazzjakom li qed isegwu l-programm illum. Sa nibdew bil-Business News u il-Restaurant Awards ta' din is-sena. Il-bira qabel l-avveniment fil-għaxija li sar fil-Lukanda Excelsior intqajt ma' Lisa Grek, id-direttriċi. Tell me about the restaurants that are nominated. What does that actually mean when they're nominated?
So what it is we conduct a survey every year. So it's a restaurant survey online on our website. And effectively people can rate the food, the service and the ambience of their restaurants that they've visited in the last 12 months. So they rate their favourite restaurants. There's also questions like where would you go for business entertainment, romantic dining. We have additional questions as well. And then once we have all the results or the information that at the end of the month of the survey, we send the information, the data to America, at which point it's analysed. And then we are sent back the top 150 restaurants out of 2,000 plus restaurants on the islands.
What impact does being on your guide have to a restaurant as a business?
Well, it's wonderful in the sense it's a people's choice guide. So it's effectively their clients who are rating them, and it's an objective guide as opposed to a critique-based guide. So people know that if they go to choose a restaurant from the 150, they're going to be more consistent, as opposed to going to any restaurant and not really knowing if you're going to have a good experience or not. So the restaurants know that being in the guide, it's their clients are rating them well, and they want to be in the guide. It shows they're doing something well, so they're very happy to be in the guide. And then, of course, if they get an award, even more so. Absolutely.
Have you seen any changes in the trends for restaurants all over Malta from last year to this year?
From last year to this year? Well, there have been a huge amount of changes. So we had 45 restaurants that were in the guide last year that are no longer in the guide this year, and then another 46 replacing them. So there's a lot of changes out of 150 restaurants. So it's pretty incredible. A lot more oriental, sort of international restaurants are probably coming up than before.
Yeah. What about competition in Malta? Restaurants and competition, is it tough?
Yes, there's so many restaurants on the market. Seemingly it's 2,000 to 3,000 restaurants. We're never quite sure what the actual figure is, but it's a huge amount for the size of the island. So yes, there's bound to be competition, and obviously location matters to a certain extent, and the better the location, the rents are really high at that point. So it's very competitive, really. Yes, they have to keep up the standards, and if they want to keep having clients effectively. And we can see this happening because restaurants open and close so quickly.
And what about restaurants as a business? The impact that inflation, the cost of food has gone up, ingredients, and also the staff shortages. How are these impacting restaurants as a business?
Well, they will have their own opinion on this, obviously. Yes, effectively everything is, as we all know, is inflation, everything's gone up quite considerably, and so obviously that affects what the restaurants are purchasing, and then what they're charging at the end of the day. They have to keep all that in mind, and so most people and everybody would probably agree that restaurants' prices have gone up considerably in the last few years. Yeah, it has. I'm sure it's had an impact on them. Having said that, the good restaurants seem to be very busy still, and they've had a good year, I would say. Certainly the ones that would have been rated and put in the guide. The good thing about the guide is that we've got different price categories. So it's not the expensive restaurants necessarily. They're all different price categories. So it's really good restaurants to more moderate rated price restaurants like cafes and things like that. So we've got a good mix in the book on the website.
You've been doing this for a lot of years.
A number of years. Dare I say, 24.
24 years. After 24 years of seeing all these restaurants and getting to know them, what sort of advice would you give somebody who's passionate about maybe food, maybe about giving service to people, hospitality. What sort of advice would you give them before they open their own business?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's so good. It's so important they do their research and get the know-how to run a restaurant. My late business partner, who started the guide with me, Con Invest, his advice, I can hear him now, would be read Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. That's the book to have and to read, and it might put you off completely from opening a restaurant in the first place.
Yes.
But yeah, absolutely getting to know what you're dealing with, doing your research, getting the training, and really making an impact in that level sort of thing.
Dik kienet intervista li għamilt mad-direttriċi ta' Restaurant Awards Lisa Grek il-bieraħ fil-ħodu. Fil-għaxija kellna ir-rebbieħ u għalhekk sa nagħtu ħarsa lejn l-avveniment u min rebaħ ir-Restaurant Awards ta' din is-sena. Sinjuri, dak kien il-Business News tal-lum. Nirringrazzjakom li qed tissegwu il-programm. Jekk għandkom xi kummenti dwar ir-Restaurant Awards ibatuhom permezz tal-WhatsApp fuq in-numru li jidher fuq l-iskrin. Jiena Hogg għal Net TV sa nifqu għal waqfa qasira.